So, what if I told you there's this hidden power just sitting inside you, a potential for greatness that's just waiting to be unlocked? Well, today we're going to dive into Robert Greene's incredible book, Mastery, because it tackles that exact idea, this ultimate form of power that, believe it or not, we all have. The philosopher Johann Wolfgang von Goethe had this amazing way of putting it. He said, everyone holds his fortune in his own hands. Like a sculptor, the raw material he will fashion into a figure. I mean, think about that for a second. We're the sculptors. It's such a powerful idea, right? That we're the artists of our own lives. Okay, but that begs the real question, doesn't it? If we've all got this raw material, then how in the world do we actually shape it? How do you go from just having potential to achieving real, true mastery? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. But before we can even get there, we've got to bust a huge myth first. So let's kick things off with Section 1, the myth of genius, and why just being talented is never, ever enough. You know how it is. We look at someone like Leonardo da Vinci and we tend to think their brilliance was, I don't know, almost magical, right? We imagine, just like Green says, that it just appears out of nowhere, like it's all about natural talent. And what happens? We put these people on a pedestal and convince ourselves that whatever they had, well, it's completely out of reach for us. And that myth, it's especially dangerous right now, because it feeds directly into what Green calls the modern retreat. I mean, let's be honest, the world can feel totally overwhelming sometimes, right? Like it's completely beyond our control. And so what do? We pull back. We retreat into being passive, and we start to believe that our fate is sealed by our genetics or the times we live in. We start thinking that old school ideas like discipline and hard work are kind of pointless. And that mindset, it's the absolute opposite of what you need for mastery. So, okay, if it's not about being born a genius, then what's the secret? Well, that brings us right to the heart of Greene's book. Welcome to Section 2, Discovering Your Life's Task. This, according to Greene, is the real secret to power. And honestly, there is no better example of this than going back to Leonardo da Vinci. Greene argues that his story doesn't start with some abstract, God-given genius. No, it starts with a hidden, deeply personal force that literally guided his entire life. I mean, just think about his circumstances for a minute. He was born illegitimate. Back then, that meant he was totally barred from all the noble professions. He couldn't even go to a university. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a massive disadvantage, right? But here's the crazy ironic part. That very limitation was his greatest freedom. It meant he was just left to his own devices, totally free to wander and explore. And where did that wandering take him? Straight into nature. And what's so cool about this is that it really pinpoints where his calling came from. It wasn't born in a classroom or some fancy workshop. It was out in the forests near his home, just driven by this raw, primal curiosity to understand and sketch every single thing he saw. That was the voice he was listening to. So here's the key takeaway. This inner force, it became his compass, his guide. His life wasn't about chasing the next paid job or getting a pat on the back from a wealthy patron. It was all about this deep, personal compulsion he had, this need to experiment, to invent, and to follow his own, completely unique path. He just let one idea flow naturally into the next. And this story just perfectly illustrates the central idea of the entire book. This is what Greene calls your life's task. He defines it as the inner force guiding you toward what you are meant to accomplish. Look, this isn't about finding a job. It's way deeper. It's about reconnecting with who you truly are at your core and what makes you you. That's the wellspring of all creative energy. And hey, this isn't just some artsy, abstract idea. It applies to science too. Check out this comparison. On one side, you've got Sir Francis Galton, a certified super genius with a sky-high IQ. And on the other, you have his cousin, Charles Darwin, a guy who actually called himself an ordinary boy. Now, Galton's incredible brainpower was kind of all over the place. He'd jump from one field to the next, never really mastering any of them. But Darwin was fueled by one single, all-consuming passion: collecting and understanding biological specimens. It was that intense love for his subject that kept him going for decades of super tedious work, and it's what ultimately led to his theory that changed the world. All right, so let's say you've found it. You've reconnected with that inner voice. Now what? Well, that leads us right into Section 3, the path to mastery. Because it's not just a feeling, it's a journey. And Greene lays it out in three really clear phases. So here's how Green breaks it down. Phase 1 is the apprenticeship. You start as an outsider, a total student, and your only goal here is to observe and practice. You've got to absorb all the fundamental rules with humility, just to build that solid foundation. Then you move into Phase 2, the creative active phase. This is where, after thousands of hours of practice, you know the rules so well you can start to bend them, to experiment, to play, and to find your own unique style. And then, finally, you hit Phase 3, mastery. At this point, your knowledge is so deep, you see the entire chessboard. You gain this intuitive, almost effortless power to create something totally new, to rewrite the rules completely. But why does this three-step process even work? Like, why are human beings even capable of this in the first place? Well, that brings us to our final and maybe most mind-blowing section: reclaiming your latent power and really understanding what your brain was made for. See, this whole thing isn't some modern self-help trick. It's pure biology. The human brain is the result of, get this, 6 million years of development. And Green's point is that this whole epic evolutionary process, this slow, patient sculpting of our minds over millennia, it designed our brains for one ultimate purpose: to achieve mastery. The paleoanthropologist Richard Leakey just nailed it when he said, "Today we stand with the brains of hunter-gatherers in our heads." Just let that sink in. It means the exact same capacity for intense focus, for patient observation, for adaptation that allowed our ancestors to survive and thrive. That wiring is still inside us, right now. So when you think about it like that, mastery isn't some elite, exclusive club for geniuses. It's actually the most natural thing in the world for a human being to do. It's simply the act of realizing our full potential by working with the grain of our minds instead of fighting against it. You know, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche just captured the spirit of this so perfectly. He wrote that geniuses, they allowed themselves time for it because they took more pleasure in making the little secondary things well than in the effect of a dazzling whole. It's not about the big finale. It's about falling in love with the process itself, the practice, the tiny details, the dedication. That's where the real magic happens. And that really brings us to the end of our explainer. But maybe it's the beginning of a much bigger question for you. After hearing all this, you've got to ask yourself, what is your life's task trying to tell you?